Welcome to the Taiwan language episode, a podcast for learning and insights in Mandarin and Taiwanese. I am your host, Yasmin. Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in. When we think about shipwrecks at sea, two stand out. The Titanic from England and the Taiping steamer from China. Both of these tragedies are unforgettable, even though they happened in different times and for different reasons. They have a lot in common. Just like our previous episode told about how the Taiping collision affected Taiwanese history. I want to go over some key ways these two shipwrecks are similar. First off, both ships represent hope. In 1912, when the Titanic was sailing, it was considered the most luxurious and advanced passenger liner of its time. People actually called it the ship that will never sink. Its design was a symbol of progress and a wealthy lifestyle, filling passengers with huge expectations for the future. Just picture this, boarding that dream ship in England, heading toward America, a land that stood for freedom. It really felt like an incredibly bright future ahead. Then in 1949, the Taiping steamer became known as the ship of hope for Chinese people escaping mainland China and heading to Taiwan. The Chinese Civil War had created so much turmoil and fear, and many people saw the Taiping steamer as their way out, hoping for a stable and safe life. For those passengers, the Taiping steamer wasn't just a ship. It was their hope and dreams wrapped up in one, a chance to start fresh in Taiwan. There is a saying in Taiwanese that goes, "Having dreams is the most beautiful. Hope follows along." Next, both the ships faced major issues with overloading and safety. The Titanic was carrying around 2,200 people, but it only had enough lifeboats for about 700. This meant that when disaster struck, most of the passengers could not escape. They were packed in like sardines, and many didn't even have time to find help. On the other hand, the Taiping steamer was originally designed to carry both the cargo and passengers, with a useful capacity of about 500 people. But even though the tickets were sold out, many people managed to board through special channels or connections, and some crew members were even taking bribes. So a lot of people ended up on the ship without tickets. In reality, the Taiping steamer was carrying nearly 1,000 people. The ship was even more overcrowded because of the cargo, and there wasn't enough escape equipment. With so many people on board and not enough way to escape, when the accident happened, passengers didn't have time to get away, which led to a tragic loss of life. Now let's take a look at what caused both the shipwrecks, and they are actually pretty similar. The Titanic hit an iceberg while sailing at night. The passengers didn't have time to get ready for what was coming, and they could not see the disaster coming their way. On the other hand, the Taiping steamer crashed into another cargo ship, the Jianyuan Lun, during a nighttime trip because the navigation lights wasn't on. This led to the ship sinking. Both accidents happened suddenly, and neither the passengers nor the crew were prepared, which ended up causing a huge loss of life. Worse still, The locations of the accidents and weather conditions made rescue efforts even more challenging. All these factors combined led to very few survivors. Also, the death rates for both ships are pretty shocking. The Titanic had around 2,200 people on board, and about 1,500 of them died, which gives it a mortality rate of about 68%. On the other hand, the Taiping steamer, with about 1,000 people aboard, only had around 50 survivors, which means its mortality rate was an unbelievable 95%. Both ships were severely overloaded and didn't have enough escape equipment. The tough conditions at the time of the accidents made rescue efforts even harder. Today we talked a bit about the similarities between the Titanic and the Taiping steamer. Now, to some people, this comparison might seem pretty odd, even a little absurd, because while those two ships are actually quite different and cannot really be compared directly. The Titanic, for instance, was famous, or rather infamous, because the company that built it claimed it was a ship that could never sink. It was the biggest and most luxurious passenger ship of its time. And back then, boarding it felt like a huge honor, and it was filled with elites and wealthy people. But the story of the Taiping was different. It was a ship people used to escape, specifically to escape the chaos of the Chinese Civil War. They were government officials, military families, and even some businessmen who were planned to relocate to Taiwan. And for most of them, getting on that ship was purely about fleeing China. The Taiping steamer was built to carry both passengers and cargo. It had actually survived 2 world wars. But afterward, it was sold as scrap metal to a shipping company, and it mainly traveled between Shanghai and Keelung Harbor. It was on its 18th voyage when it sank, and its last trace disappeared in the waters near the Zhoushan archipelago. So, to put it bluntly, this old worn-out ship really can't be compared to the luxury liner like the Titanic. Why do people still put these two ships side by side in comparison? I think it's because of the 2 big movies about them. They both left quite an impression. I've seen both the movies myself, and I've noted a few similarities. But honestly, aside from the resemblance and the tragic shipwrecks, the most moving parts in both movies were really the love stories. The Titanic had its incredibly romantic story, which ended on such a poignant note. In the Taiping movie, there were 3 couples with love stories, but for 2 of them, things didn't end happily either. Of course, the shipwreck events were real, but those love stories, they are fictional. Most of those characters were actually made up so that through the performances of famous actors, viewers would focus on these historical events. It was a way to get people curious about the background of that time. Personally, it was only after watching these movies that I got curious enough to start reading related books. That's when I realized such a tragic event really did happen in history. Now looking at it closely, there is no such more to these events than meets the eye. Words alone cannot capture the helplessness and despair people felt during those shipwrecks. Imagine watching several ships that could have helped, just turn a blind eye and sail away. That kind of coldness is tough to fathom. The truth of the situation probably involved the shipping companies, the government at that time, and the entire social atmosphere. No single person can destroy the world on their own. It's the accumulation of people's actions, intentional or not, that leads to these outcomes. In a way, everyone in history shares some responsibility for what happened. And that's when I finally understood the idea of collective karma in history. Basically, historical karma means that events in history don't just happen because of one person or one reason. That's actually because of the actions, choices, and the social atmosphere of many people all building up over time. It's like everyone at the time had their part in pushing things forward, which led to the result. In other words, everyone has some responsibility. It's just that the level of a responsibility might be different for each person. Now take the sinking of the Taiping incident. It wasn't just because one person made a mistake, but because a lot of things went wrong all at once. For example, passengers risked getting on the ship to escape the war. The crew overloaded the ship and didn't manage the safety properly. And even when the accident happened, other ships were passing by and could have rescued the people on board. But they chose to just ignore the situation. All these things, big and small, added up and causes the tragedy. So historical karma is really just a reminder for us that right now we are doing the same thing. Every single action we take is writing today's history. The choice you make today might seem small or insignificant, but when you add it up with what other people are doing, it can actually have a big impact on the future. That's why everyone should take responsibility for the outcome. And human history is exactly how it's built, bit by bit, action by action. Now, setting aside these shipwreck stories, aren't we today creating yet another chapter of history? So those are a few points of similarity between the two shipwrecks that I wanted to share. I hope this helps everyone understand these two significant historical events a little better. That's it for today's episode. And now it's our Taiwanese time. The first Taiwanese vocabulary is 朋友, friend, 朋友. If you wanna say, I consider you my best friend, that is, 我甲你當作是上好的朋友。我甲你當作是上好的朋友。It expresses that the speaker sees the other person as their closest friend. 我甲你當作是上好的朋友。Next, 每項代誌 every matter or everything. 每項代誌 每項代誌 It refers to all things or every task. 每項代誌 Next, long, all about. Everything needs. Long. If you want to say, he needs help with everything, you can say, 伊逐項代誌攏愛人鬥相共。伊逐項代誌攏愛人鬥相共。That it means that the person constantly requires help for every task. And next, he needs other people's help. 伊需要人鬥相共。伊需要人鬥相共。It suggests that the person relies on others for assistance. 伊需要人鬥相共。Alright, now let's review today's Taiwanese vocabulary. 朋友，我甲你當作是上好的朋友。這項代誌，攏 伊逐项代志拢爱人斗3工。伊需要人斗3工。So that wraps up what I wanted to share today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you like this podcast, I would be so grateful if you could leave a 5-star review on your favorite listening platform. And feel free to share this podcast with your friends. It really helps more people discover this podcast. If you would love to support my work, you can buy me a cup of coffee. Every bit helps keep this podcast going and allows me to keep creating helpful language learning resources. To enrich your learning experience, I also create a study guide in both Chinese and Taiwanese. You will get a full transcript in Chinese with pinyin and Taiwanese with both romanization and local phonetic symbols. The study guide also includes a key vocabulary, reading comprehension questions with answer keys, and a few bonus questions to help you think deeper about the topic. You can become a member to access these study guides. They are a great way to preview before a new episode drops or review after listening. And don't miss the vocabulary-rich episode, a new series released every 2 weeks on the SoundOn, Spotify, and Ko-fi platforms. Each episode highlights 10 essential vocabulary words based on that week's topic, plus 5 practical everyday sentences to help you use what you've learned with confidence. All the links and details are in the show notes below. Thanks again for tuning in, and I hope you will join me again next time on Taiwan language episode. Until next time, bye bye!